Hello and welcome back. This is a video over multiplying and dividing rational expressions. Remember, rational expressions are just fractions. Okay, so we're going to kind of, rational expression is really just a fraction. Okay, and we're going to be multiplying and dividing rational expressions. Okay, so what I want to do is talk about multiplying and dividing fractions just kind of as numbers. And so when we multiply, okay, and multiplying is pretty easy. When we multiply, that means that we just multiply numerators and denominators. So multiply across, multiply numerators and denominators, okay? Denominators. Okay, so let's just look at an example real quick, and let's just say, all right, if I had the fraction, I'll just make something up like 3/7, and we multiply that by, say, 5/2, okay, then what I'd want to do is I would multiply across my numerator and denominator. Okay, so I would get one fraction, and that would be 3 times 5 over 7 times 2, okay, which would then give me 15 over 14, all right, and that would be the result. Okay, let's also think about something here. Let's think of another example, and let's do something like this, where I take, like, say, 3/4 times, and let's do like 8/6, okay? And let's go ahead and just kind of think about that for a second. And let's go ahead and multiply across. I'm going to do this problem a couple different ways. What I'm going to do is, multiply my numerator together, numerators, so 3 times 8. So we'll do 3 times 8, and then my denominator, which is 4 times 6, okay? Now, I chose these numbers for a reason. What I'll end up getting here, 3 times 8 is 24 over 4 times 6, which is 24. And really, when you have a fraction, all you're doing is dividing two numbers. So when you get 24 divided by 24, that just gives you 1. Okay, now if I do this problem another way, okay, let me do this. Let me do 3/4 times 8 over 6. If I look at 8 and 4, okay, those numbers simplify, and let me highlight them. If I look at 4 and 8 together, and I divide those numbers, what I can divide those out to, 8 divided by 4, and you can think of this as like cross multiplication, or cross division rather, but if I take 8 and divide it by 4, that simplifies to 2 over 1, okay? And if I look at, the 3 and the 6, okay, that simplifies to 1 over 2. Okay, and so this becomes 1 over 2. So then as a result, you get this equivalent statement of saying 1 over 1 times 2 over 2. Okay, and all I've done is replace 8 over 4 with 2 over 1, and 3 over 6 with 1 over 2. Okay, and if I take 1 times 1, and let's just multiply across here, 1 times 2 is just going to give me 2. 1 times 2 is going to give me 2. 2 divided by 2 is also 1. So you get the same thing. Okay, again, guys, when you're doing fractions and you're multiplying and dividing them, I don't care what you do, I want you to get it right. Okay, now the other thing is doing division with fractions. Okay, so let's make this, and let's talk about division. Now, division isn't that hard, okay? If you know how to multiply fractions, then division of fractions is very easy. Okay, and what we do is we multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, and by reciprocal, I mean flip the fraction. Okay, so now let's look at an example here. Okay, so if I were to take, say, and let's do this. Let's just do 3/7 okay, and divide that by 5 halves, okay, then what I would do in order to do the division here, I would take 3/7, keep that fraction the same, but I would multiply by the reciprocal, which means I'm going to flip my fraction and multiply by 2/5, okay? And so what we end up getting here, okay, and then it becomes a multiplication problem, okay, and we just multiply across. So now I've got 3 times 2 over 7 times 5, which gives me 6/35, and that's our answer. Okay, so division really isn't that bad. As long as we know how to multiply, then that's it, okay? So now let's think about something else. Let's do another example just real quick, and we'll move on to what we need to do. Let's say I have, like, 6/7 divided by 12/21, okay? Now, what I'd want to do to turn this into a, be able to do this, I need to multiply by the reciprocal, so I need to flip that. So I'm going to take 6/7, okay, and I'm going to multiply it by 21/12, okay? And now what you can do is you can kind of think about this and say, all right, well, 21/7, okay, these numbers, if you're multiplying, you can divide them out. 21/7 reduces down or simplifies to 3/1. Okay, and 6/12 simplifies to 1/2. So as a result, what you're left with is 1 times 1/1 times 3/2. Multiply that across, and you're just going to get 3 halves, and that's it. Okay, and just leave it like that. All right, so that's the idea. Okay, so hopefully that's a refresher for you and you've done this before. But let's go ahead and let's, take a look at how we would do this, okay? So when I multiply rational expressions, okay, what I want to do to simplify this, okay, is the first thing you want to be able to do is to factor something, okay? So let me rewrite this problem over here. Okay, let me zoom in. And this gives me 3/4x times 4x squared plus 8x. And then this is going to be x plus 2. Okay, so traditionally what I would do is you're just going to multiply across. Now, my thing is this. You want to factor things that you know you can factor. Okay, so when I just look strictly at my numerator in the second fraction up here, I realize that I can factor out a 4x. So watch what happens here. Okay, I'm going to do 3/4x times, I can factor out a 4x, and I'm left with x plus 2. Okay, and then I divide that by the quantity x plus 2. Now, remember when I started dividing things out up over here? Okay, and did all that kind of stuff? The reason why I'm able to divide things out and simplify them is because I'm multiplying. Okay, so when you have, and really when I write this, let me rewrite this as 3 times 4x times the quantity x plus 2, and I'm dividing all this by 4x times x plus 2. Okay, so now the things that I can divide out is I can divide out this x plus 2 and x plus 2 factor, okay, and I can also divide out the 4x and the 4x. Okay, if I take x plus 2 divided by itself, that divides out to 1/1. Okay, same thing with 4x divided by 4x. That divides out to 1/1. And the thing that you're left with is 3, okay, 3 times 1 times 1 over 1 times 1. Okay? And when you do that, 3 times 1 times 1 is just going to give you 3/1. It's going to give you an answer of 3. Okay? So all this stuff, when you multiply this stuff out, okay, we'll multiply these fractions and you simplified it, you get an answer of 3. Okay? And that's the idea. All right, so that's kind of how I operate, okay? Factor first, always factor whatever you can, see what things divide out, and then simplify, okay? All right, so now let's and that's the same thing that they say here, okay? Factor the numerators and denominators, simplify, divide by dividing out common factors, and then write the product. So what I have here, and let's do this, okay? We've got this. Let's go ahead and simplify this. Now, everything is factored except for this numerator here, okay? K plus 6 is simplified, 10, 2k, and the 5. You can't really do anything with that, okay? However, let's do this. Let's factor this numerator here. So the two numbers that add to positive 4 but multiply to 12 is going to be positive 6 and negative 2, okay? And so when I do this, I'm going to do k plus 6 times k minus 2, okay? This is all over 5 times 10 over k plus 6 times k over 2. Now, one of the things that I can do with rational expressions, when you're multiplying these, you're just multiplying straight across, okay, top and bottom. What I can do is I can reorder things, and that might help you see how to do that. Now, I can do that because multiplication is commutative, so I can reorder what I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to rewrite my numerators, okay? I'm going to write it all as one fraction here, okay? So really what I have is I have the quantity, k plus 6, times k minus 2, times the value k, and then times 10, okay? And there's a reason why I'm doing that, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this k plus 6 over here. So I'm going to write k plus 6. I'm going to multiply that by 5, and I'm going to multiply that by 2, okay? Now, what I see here is that I have a common factor of k plus 6. I can divide those out because both of those I am multiplying, okay? I'm multiplying these two things together. So if you're multiplying things, you can then divide them out. That's how that works. So I'm going to divide out the k plus 6, okay, and that's 1 over 1, all right? And I'm going to rewrite this, okay, and kind of look at it from a new, fresh perspective. So I've got the quantity k minus 2 times k, and then times 10. Now, the other thing I need to realize is that I'm taking 5 times 2 here, which gives me a 10 on the bottom. Now, when I look at that, I have 10 divided by 10. Okay, I'm multiplying by 10, so I can divide those out, and these divide out. Okay, so then what you're left with, in the end, let me kind of move this up over here, is you're left with the quantity k minus 2 times k. Okay, and this is divided by 1. All right, and you could probably leave it like this, leave it as k times k minus 2. All right, I just reordered them. You can do that. You can move these things around. Divide it by 1. Okay, I would just leave it like this, leave it in factored form, or you could multiply that through and you get k squared minus 2k. All right, so either way, these are both the correct answers, but I would probably prefer the factored version, but be able to write it in both ways, okay? All right, so now let's talk about division, okay? And what I want to do is this, all right? Let's go ahead and let me rewrite this down here. I've got 6x minus 3, take that, divide it by 12, divided by the quantity 2x minus 1 squared, and then divide that by 6x. Okay, so I'm going to take 6x minus 3 divided by 12, and what I'm going to do, in order for us to divide this fraction, we have to multiply by the reciprocal, and I'm going to do 6x over the quantity 2x minus 1, quantity squared. Okay, now what I'm going to do is see what things I can factor. Okay, now what I can factor here is the 6x minus 3. I can factor out a 3 from that. Okay, so if I factor out a 3, then I'm left with a 2x minus 1. Okay, this is over 12 times 6x. And in order for us to kind of see this, I'm going to show what this means when I square that. And that means I'm going to do a 2x minus 1 times 2x minus 1. Okay? Now, what I'm doing, because I'm multiplying all these things together, okay, I have a common factor of 2x minus 1 and a 2x minus 1. I can now divide those out, okay, in just one of them. All right, so now what I have, and let's take a look, okay, I'm going to write this all as one fraction now. I've got 3 times 6x all over 12 times 2x minus 1, okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and multiply the 3 and the 6 together. And it doesn't, and there's a number of ways of doing this. You don't have to do it this way. But, okay, so that gives me 18x over 12 times the quantity 2x minus 1. Okay, now 18 divided by 12, okay, if I look at those numbers separately, each of those are divisible by 6. Okay? And so as a result, what I get is that's going to give me 18 divided by 6 is 3 times x over 2 times 2x minus 1. And that's it. Okay, from there, I can't factor anything else out. Nothing else is going to divide out from there. So that's my answer. Okay, so, you've got to, factor things, see what parts divide out, simplify your fractions, and then go from there. Okay, and that's it. All right, let's go ahead and do one more problem on the next page, and then we'll be done. Okay, on the next page, we have this one where we call these complex fractions. And these are in what I call inceptive fractions. The movie Inception is about dreams within dreams, and I call these incepted fractions because we have fractions within fractions. And by that, what I mean is this. Okay, so a complex, okay, whatever, I just explained that. All right, what I want to show you is that I have this fraction, okay, 36p to the fourth divided by 6, and then that's going to be divided by this other piece here. So I have this big fraction here. Okay, this part is my numerator, and my numerator itself is a fraction. And I'm dividing that by this piece here. Okay, so watch what happens. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this. Okay, always rewrite. Okay, and I'm going to write my fraction, my numerator, 36p to the fourth over 6. I'm going to then divide that by the quantity p cubed plus 3p squared. Now, this itself is also a fraction. Okay, we are dividing this by 1. That's the trick for these, okay, is to turn, when you just have a normal denominator like this, some sort of expression as a denominator, turn that into a fraction. Okay, now since we're dividing those, and that's really what a fraction is just division, okay, I want to then flip this and multiply. So multiply by the reciprocal. So I get 36p to the fourth divided by 6 times 1 over p cubed plus 3p squared. Okay? Now, what I can do, now what I have is I just have a division problem. Okay? So let me rewrite this up here. So I've got 36p to the fourth, okay, all over 6 times 1 over. And let's go ahead and let's factor out something here. We can factor out a p squared. Okay, so this becomes a p squared, and you're left with p plus 3. Okay? So now what I can do is I can look at a few things that I can divide out. Okay? I can divide out the 36 and 6. Okay? That divides out to 6 over 1. Okay? And then, okay, I can divide out the p to the fourth over p squared, okay? And that's going to divide out p to the fourth, and this would be 4 minus 2, so it'd be p squared. So my next step would be this. I would get 6p squared over 1 times 1 over p plus 3. Okay, and I would just multiply across and combine these. Okay, and this would end up giving me 6p squared over p plus 3. All right, this is kind of a tricky thing. Okay, so it takes practice, it takes time, but I guarantee that if you practice it, it'll get better. All right, so when you get something like this, okay, you may want to refer back to the notes and do this problem. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.